GrowCFO is where finance leaders grow together. Join thousands of like-minded professionals using GrowCFO to access the combined knowledge and experience of the finance leader community. You can join us today at growcfo.net. Hello, welcome to the GrowCFO show. I'm your host, Kevin Appleby, and I've got a returning guest today. We first spoke way back in episode 7 of this podcast, and Andrew Waters has been a guest a couple of times since. And Andrew is from Zanda recruitment agency that GrowCFO are very friendly with. And we've talked on a number of occasions about the market for new CFOs, the skills for new CFOs. So I thought we'd catch up on all of that again today, especially as we're a week away from the summit, the Future CFO. Strategy, Growth and Impact, which is going to be really exciting next week, the 11th and 12th of September. But Andrew, welcome back to the GrowCFO show.
Thank you very much. Number 7 is my favourite number, just so you know. So that's quite weird. And the summit lineup and topics looks awesome. So yeah, I think Zanda's getting involved on 3 or 4 of those sessions. So yeah, we'll obviously dig into those topics, I'm sure, during this conversation at some stage.
And Andrew, 7 as your favourite number. That is a real coincidence, because the 2 sessions in that summit that you're part of both kick off at 7 p.m.
I didn't ask for that, but
so
it's just a good number. I don't know. Unfortunately, it's a United thing that's spiraled. So yeah.
Oh, if we get into football, there's only one number, and that's 9.
Right, I know why that is.
That's a Newcastle thing, number 9. Whenever the team's playing well, we've got a good number 9. Yeah. But anyway, Andrew, episode 7, we talked about securing your first CFO role. And I know we've spoken since then about the state of the market and so on. Now, going right back, that's 4 years ago. What's happened?
Geez, you could probably write a book about that. There's been 4 iterations of the CFO just in that time that we've been asked to find. So if we wing our way back to those lockdown days, the CFO that we're being asked to find was one that was transformation focused and project focused, able to order a lot of laptops and structure a business that's going fully remote from an office environment, completely alien environment. It needed a level of emotional intelligence and empathy for the team, and a resilience and agility of mind to be able to lead and challenge decision making in a really, difficult period for a number of organizations that went from 50 million revenue and losing 80 to 90% of their revenue overnight, or all of the revenue overnight. So a deep focus on cash flow forecasting, a deep understanding of furlough and all of the complexities. We came out of that period with, obviously, we focused primarily on PE or VC-backed growth businesses. And there was a tech boom in terms of the funding available in light of how fast technology advanced during lockdown. The likes of Zoom and digital platforms grew 100x over a couple of months period, versus normally we had need 10, 20 years of tech acceleration to get to those stages. And with that amount of funding and cash being cheap coming into the business, CFOs were being hired to raise as much capital as possible and to allocate it to growth levers as quickly as possible, to scale as quickly as possible. Where tech businesses didn't have a big moat from a IP or from a particular focus on tech that's differential versus competitors, there was a goal of getting to scale and customers, whether that's B2B or B2C, as quickly as possible. So pulling all of the growth levers, whether that's M&A, international expansion, product development, overheads in terms of growth teams, marketing teams, sales teams, scale as quickly as possible. Now, obviously, once valuations dropped off, and I think this is mid-2022, this really became apparent that people couldn't raise a follow-on round at the same valuation. Valuations were plummeting very quickly, and people were struggling to raise. At that stage, the type of CFO we needed from mid-2022 right the way up until the beginning of this year was one focused on transformation again, but more around driving to sustainable growth, extending runway, being you're having deep scrutiny on cash flow forecasting and the runway, reducing headcount, reducing spend, but making sure that making sure that the capital allocation they could make was being kept and maintained in the right areas. So lots of restructuring, lots of changing of team and costs. A lot of CFOs going through a really tough period where they've not led one, not two, but maybe three company-wide restructures, saying no to the business for kind of 18 months. And then at the beginning of this year, you're still seeing elements of that, businesses that have scaled and still need to make some cost cuts to be able to get through to when the valuation started to change and people could raise money a bit more. That we're shifting into a period now where that has softened a little. More fundraising is happening. Individuals that can no longer delay a down round or how to do a down round. Founders and execs and investors are having to make difficult decisions around portfolio businesses. And it's a case of ripping off the Band-Aid and now either raising or hoping that the market they're in is improved enough that they can raise. So the CFO we're looking for, and I predict for the next 6 months and probably all of 2025, unless something dramatic happens, which I can't predict, is a CFO that's entrepreneurial yet pragmatic, someone that's wanting to drive the business forward, but is pragmatic around the capital allocation strategy and there's deep metrics and focus on the data around how they're allocating capital in different areas and what is the return on investment. Are they focused on margin, international scale, customer scale? What is that lifetime value versus CAC ratio? So we're looking for an entrepreneurial CFO that wants to drive growth, but pragmatic and able to challenge the business on the capital allocation strategy and trying on a number of businesses to drive towards profitability, to have sustainable growth and their own destiny in their own hands. Obviously, some of those very ambitious venture-backed businesses that are looking to 10x, 20x, 30x will reiterate to what has happened in the past, but maybe slightly more in a measured way until a long enough period's gone that people have forgotten what happened in 2021, 2022, when the market was extremely tough.
That says to me that the skills that the CFO needs are pretty broad. Great, you're seeing the demand for people that want to recruit now and what they want. But there will be many businesses that have had the same CFO all the way through that period. And that one person has had to respond to all of those different demands. So, Andrew, that then raises an interesting question that says somebody new to CFO, somebody who's head of finance now, with all of those different skills demands, how do they go about being CFO ready when the requirement's so broad?
I don't think anyone's ever fully ready. In answer to your first question, I would say that most very ambitious, highly talented VPs of finance or FDs that step up into a CFO role might be from a hard work and from a desire 10 out of 10. But in terms of actually when the boots hit the ground, they're probably a 6 or a 7 out of 10. So it's super important to have a network of peers and mentorship and support so that you've got people that have been there and done it that you can ask questions to, but also peer group that are going through similar challenges or particular experts in different elements of the CFO role that you can dip into. Obviously, the Future CFO program is a great example of enabling that to happen in a peer group of 12 other individuals that are looking to step up into the CFO role or have just stepped up into the CFO role. You're likely to have experts in tax, FP&A, finance technology, fundraising, M&A, financial reporting, leadership, etc., so that you can call Sarah on finance technology or have a coffee with Johnny on fundraising and somebody else on FinOps processes. So I think having the right peer group and mentorship enables people to step up to be a CFO in a slightly more supported environment. I think people need to have a real clear awareness of what the CFO role is. So what do they own? And obviously it's very different for each company and each sector and each role you go into. So some will be more like a CFO, COO role where there's lots of ops and project management as well as finance and commercial finance. but they're probably a smaller business where they don't need a separate ops function. So you're going to lean to a CFO toolkit that has a different kind of makeup than a venture-backed CFO where they've got a COO and it's a fintech versus a e-commerce versus a biotech business. So you need to know what you're walking into your first CFO role. You also need to have this mentorship, peer group support, and you need to have an awareness of where your skills lay and your strengths lay in both the soft skills related to a CFO role and the hard skills related to a CFO role. So the soft skills are very often overlooked, but actually that's probably the main differentiator from a finance director to a CFO. It's those individuals that have got the character and the personality traits of resilience, agility, gravitas, to bring people on that journey and inspire people on that journey, and excellent storytelling skills to be able to explain to the team and to external parties, investors, where we are currently, where we're going, and are you going to join us on the journey? This is what we're going to do. And then with that, the leadership piece of the business in general, not just the team below, but a leader that inspires and impacts the decision-making process. So how do they bring data and communicate it to challenge the business to drive the right decisions and the right behaviors with their peer group of chief marketing officers, chief people officers, COOs, product teams, but also with the CEO and the founder. So those soft skills are super important. And the evolution to be ready on the soft skills is very interesting. Within the Future CFO program, module 4, one of the things I asked the cohort members to do is I put an imaginary gun to their head and I asked them to tell me, what are the 3 qualities that your reputation is built on currently? So there's 12 people in the group, and I give them 60 seconds to instantaneously highlight the 3 qualities that their reputation internally is. Out of those 12, 80% of those are hardworking, trustworthy, reliable. I can't swear, but get all around gritty stuff that drives the business forwards. There's some isolated instances where people have mentioned commercial or strong team leader, but they're really 80% of the qualities of heads of finance, great controllers, FDs tends to be more gritty, hands-on, resilient, leader, deliver, trustworthy. Whereas then I asked them to name the 3 qualities that they see in the CFOs they report to, or the CFOs that they've most been inspired by in the past, what would they give as their 3 qualities? And the 3 things that come through are strategic, challenge, regularly always right, inspire, impact, gravitas, and those types of elements. So it's trying to understand on the soft skills how you elevate and move your reputation and your soft skill ability from X to Y. But if you don't know what you're starting from and where you're trying to go, that's incredibly difficult to do.
I think some of our listeners might not be totally familiar about the Future CFO program. And so for those that aren't aware, Future CFO program is something that we've been running GrowCFO actually for the last 4 years. And Andrew, you've been part of this right since the start. We take a cohort of about a dozen people and take them through over the course of 12 months, 9 2-hour workshops, plus a virtual boardroom exercise and 1 or 2 other things, and try to take them through a journey that'll get them to a point that they are more CFO-ready than they were when they started. Now, Andrew, over the course of that 4 years, and back 4 years ago, you were dealing with candidates that hadn't been going through that process. And now you've probably seen quite a lot that have been through that 12-month journey of that program. What sort of difference do you think that's made?
Well, look, I think the awareness piece is massive. So is the awareness piece of the hard skills that a CFO needs to possess to be successful that they do or don't have. So if we think about that as a T-shaped CFO example or your CFO toolkit example, the top of that vertical is fundraising, M&A, strategic planning, capital allocation, exit readiness, IPO readiness. If you haven't gained any of that exposure as a finance leader, then there's obviously elements within the program that enable you to do the fundraising simulator or the M&A simulator, for example, but also the peer group can help with IPO readiness or kind of exit planning M&A. So if we think about the top tier strategic elements of a CFO role that finance leaders tend to be missing or need to gain, there's a peer group that can support them with it, or there's content specific to it. So the hard skills piece is obviously, it helps with those areas where there's gaps. Now, it's also worth pointing out that within the cohort, there will be investment banking type profiles or strategic profiles that are very good on that top strategic piece, but are pretty inexperienced on finance operations or finance technology or month end or FP&A. So they, in tow, whilst they're never going to be doing that hands-on in their first CFO, it's unlikely. But if they are, they obviously have some peer group support and some content around how to implement the right finance technology that's insightful and scalable for the business, how to plug in different FinOps approval systems into Xero, for example. So it's an awareness of where you've got gaps in the hard skills and some ability to work on them and be proactive on them. And then, as alluded to, it's the soft skills piece and know what that gap is from where you are currently versus the impactful CFO that you aspire to be and how you work on them. Now, an awareness of them is the first step. Is then a commitment to the regularity of the development of your confidence in those areas. And that might need not necessarily a CFO mentor, it might need a professional coach on the personality and character traits. But yeah, certainly it's increased the ability of hitting the ground running compared to compatriots that don't have that infrastructure of support.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've talked about the role in evolving, different skills being required. Now, you're recruiting in both London and New York, Andrew. Are the requirements the same both sides of the Atlantic, or are you seeing differences?
There's definitely differences. The pace in New York is a lot faster, partly because of the notice periods being so much shorter, and therefore the speed of the recruitment process is maybe 3 times the pace. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, I think there tends to be a commonality with certain elements. I would say the US is more focused on strategic commercial growth, and the investors are slightly more buoyant around opportunities and capital is more available. So they would favor more of a strategic investment ready type CFO than perhaps a slightly more traditional market in the UK, where the Big Four qualification is still the most common, I would say. Whereas a lot of the US based CFOs may not have a qualification and they rely on a really good qualified group controller below and a really good VP of FP&A below. So I'd say there's more strategic or investment banking type CFOs in New York versus the UK. But I'd say it is definitely more flexible on that in the UK than it has been 10 years ago, for example. I think people are seeing that with the right design of finance function, team and technology, that the core elements of financial reporting, financial operations, finance technology, covering month end, year end, budgeting, those sorts of things can be automated and have the right team to own it, which means that the CFO has more availability to focus on, hopefully, more of the utilizing the data to drive insight and decision making, which favors a more commercially focused individual. So I think that the best CFOs, the most impactful CFOs, are particularly good in the first 100 days. I know you do the 100-day module within Future CFO program, but those first 100 days are so valuable, and the prep before and during, you can nail the foundations of a finance function and make such an inroad that it frees up time because you've got the team, technology and systems to provide development opportunities for the team, but also to elevate yourself to focus on adding true value with your peer group. Because whether it's a chief marketing officer looking at how to look at return on investment on different marketing channels, whether that's a chief product officer looking at the development of 12 different products, 3 of which have got revenue against them, 9 of which don't, and how to assess what we continue and where we go. The CFO is in the privileged seat of seeing all the data that comes in and out of the business and is best placed if they've got the right soft skills to help the business make the right decision more times than not.
So next week, Andrew, in the Future CFO Summit that we're running, and we'll put details in the show notes if you want to come along and join us on that summit. It's absolutely free. It's running on both days. It's 12 sessions, each an hour long. It's running 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. UK time. So I'll not go through all the various time zone differences that we've got there, but you're talking about things there about that first 100 days as CFO and the challenges and the things that you need to put in place. As you said, Module 9 of the Future CFO program covers that. But there are things that you need to know about, and we're covering some of those on the summit. And the final session, which I'm really looking forward to, Adam Shilton's looking at leveraging technology. Before that, yourself and Dav Maserna are coming along to talk about scaling the finance function, because quite often you'll have been brought in with a remit to change finance. And part of that first 100 days is blueprinting what you want and then starting to implement the changes. So I'm really looking forward to those 2 sessions about technology and scaling the function. Should be really good. But we talk about the process of getting that CFO role. I think Jane's joining us from Zanda to talk about that process, Andrew.
Yeah, Jane is, I think. So obviously, I think that we'll dig into that in more detail, but I think that landing your first CFO role or moving into a new CFO role, it's making sure that there's an awareness of many things. And just a small example of that is the interview process is likely to be 4, 5, 6 meetings with different people. And each of those individuals will be assessing you based on what they think the business needs. So a meeting with a chief people officer will be very different than a meeting with a peer as a COO or with the chairperson. So a chief people officer will be really focused on the culture of the business, retention and recruitment of the right people. They'll be looking for people to come into the business that are collaborative, that inspire, look after and develop their teams. They will be measured on low churn rates and a positive working environment. So they'll want to hire a CFO that embodies those soft skills and has a track record of delivering and building great teams. A CEO or founder might be looking for more commercial experience of driving margin growth or profitability. A chair will be really focused on, can they partner with this person to run the board and have all of the risks and controls around the cash situation that the business needs, and want to talk with that person in advance of board meetings so that those board meetings are focusing on the key things that need to be covered off. So really digging into the different interview stages, but Jane will also dig in how you get part of that process as well in terms of visibility of your profile, the quality of your CV, and all of those good bits. The scaling the team piece is obviously super interesting. We work with businesses that are maybe 20 people to 500 people in size, all walks and different kind of stages and very different ways of how to slice and dice finance functions. Some love a number 2 in a broad role, whether that's a VP of finance below a CFO or an FD below a CFO. And then they have 2 or 3 direct reports below covering controls, FinOps and FP&A. Some love having just 2 direct reports into the CFO, a group controller and a head of commercial finance or commercial FD. Some like 3 direct reports, a head of finance operations, a head of financial control, a head of FP&A. It all depends a little bit on where the CFO wants to play and at what level they want to play and how comfortable are they being hands-on in detail, but also what's the budget available to structure the finance function the way you ideally want it.
And it comes back to the CFO having effectively such a broad remit, having to address so many different competencies and so many different skills. There's an element there, isn't there, of recognizing that you can't be good, or, well, you've probably got to have a certain level at everything, but you can't be exceptional at everything. And quite often, one of the ways to cover your blind spots is to have the right number two and the right direct reports around you.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I think this is the same with entrepreneurs, and it's been proven on many occasions. And I'm sure it's the same for CEOs and CFOs, and having 7 or 8 out of 10 across all of the balanced scorecard, and then hiring A players as functional specialists or specialists in that particular area means that you've always got access to the expert at the end of a phone call, at the end of a huddle or a Zoom call. You don't need to know it all, but you need to be the conductor that has built a team that knows and have the gravitas and the ability to pull that team together in a collaborative, positive environment that's driving the business forward. So I think that's super important. A players, hire A players. I think we've had this conversation before. B players don't want to hire A players because they will then have a spotlight shine on them that they are not at the same level as people below them. And they tend to hire C players to make them look good. So a CFO hiring A players is priority number one. I think that's the same with a founder and an entrepreneur building out their direct reports. They have to be A players because then the quality maintains at a high level, or it's got the greatest chance of staying at the high level. But a B player is only going to bring the organization down in that function, and by osmosis bring out the worst out of other functions.
Yeah. And we touched on that first 100 days. We've touched on challenges there, and we're talking about A players. But we know that even A players have issues in that early part of the role. There's certainly 10 key issues that we've identified over time. And Catherine Clark's going to be running a session at the summit looking at those 10 issues. But classically, just to give listeners a little bit of a peek into that, one of the things we see there is imposter syndrome, lack of confidence.
I was listening to something on imposter syndrome at the weekend, actually, and I hadn't thought about it this way before. Imposter syndrome generally means that you care about something, but you're just a beginner. You wouldn't get imposter syndrome unless you cared about what you were going in to do, or if there wasn't some anxiety around you not being quite up to the level of where you would like to be. But it doesn't mean it's something you should lean away from. If anything, it probably demonstrates it's something you really need to lean into. So, I know that's a muscle that you need to continually work and put into resistance. And that resistance is imposter syndrome. And gradually the level of your comfortability will go up. With that, you're basically, it's a confidence level. It's like learning anything, learning guitar or drums or something, going into that first lesson. You may have nervous excitement because you really love it, but you could say it's imposter syndrome. So I don't know whether this is factually correct, but I think that imposter syndrome means that you care and you're passionate about something, you want to be good at it, but you're just early into it, or you're a beginner and learning. And there's people you look at who make it look easy, but you also can't see their legs under the water, which probably are going 10 to the dozen, not as calm as it looks on the surface.
Yeah, a few podcast episodes ago, I was talking to a leadership guru, actually, Andrew, and interesting observation that he made is that the people that suffer from imposter syndrome are generally the people that are very good. The ones that don't suffer from it tend to be your B and C players, in actual fact.
I think that's a good point. I think, again, I don't know the stats behind this, but what I would say is I do pre-reg calls. I've done thousands of pre-reg calls with CFOs, like literally thousands. And I get a feel instantaneously based on the first 5 minutes of the call, based on their personality traits and many things. So, for example, someone that can communicate a 20-year career succinctly and provide clarity around where they're looking to go and why they're looking for that type of role next and what they bring to the table, and providing a summary of their career. And there's many things that can be taken from that versus someone that after 25 minutes, I'm still not quite at the stage where they've finished, where they've spoken about their career to date or provided any clarity of where they want to go and why they want to go there. So I think for an introductory call with a search firm or for an in-house recruiter for a CFO role, that individual can play it in a way with confidence and clarity versus someone who's not experienced at doing that hasn't really thought about how to approach that conversation. So whether that is a B player or a C player trying to defend what they've done in their career to date, I don't know. But what I would say is some of the best A player CFOs put you at ease and take you on a journey, and they effectively do their version of a storytelling of the business, but on their own career and what they're looking to do next and what makes them excited. So there's an internal confidence, I think, with A players. But those first time A players in the CFO role, there's going to be some imposter syndrome because the muscle's not built up yet. They're still a beginner as a CFO. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I think it does. And actually, that sounds fascinating. That idea that the A player you're identifying very quickly is dropping straight into that very important skill of storytelling and taking you on a journey versus defending their career or perhaps trying to, at an uncomfortable question, or trying to delve deep into some experience and try and shape it almost on the fly into trying to tell you they've got the right experience.
It's very common that we're paid money to find the best individual possible for a role. And we will be given a shopping list of things to look for. And there'll be a priority order of the top 5. And when you combine that top 5 with the right personality, that is what we're looking for. The right character traits and traits that are going to add value to the business and have the core soft skills that a business needs with the 5 experiences, the sector, the stage, all of that good stuff, and previously raised money with whoever. And therefore that means that there's a number of people that apply for these roles or reach out that take offense that they've not been shortlisted or that we don't have time to talk with them all. And it's difficult. I wish we could talk to more people, but theoretically, each really good CFO role will get 500 to 600 people reach out. And if you're doing a 5-minute call with each of them to say, unfortunately, it's a no for this reason, it would take way too long. But we do also challenge on those 5 core pieces. So if we have 3 of the top 5, but actually we find a personality and character type that's the best match out of everybody, you should see them. So they may not tick every single box of the key 5 priorities, but actually personality-wise, I think they're the best fit for you as a CEO, character-wise, personality-wise, and will have a really big impact in the company. So this is a wildcard profile because they don't tick every one of the 5 boxes, but we're going to give you 6 profiles instead of 5 or 5 profiles instead of 4. So, and that piece around the soft skills and the fit piece comes from an innate natural confidence and personality that has empathy and positivity. Yeah, storytelling skills to be able to make you believe that this is how they will go about making things better in an organization and be able to challenge and impact the positive trajectory of the company.
Andrew, that is really fascinating. But I know that time is not on our side. And I think what we've seen as we've chatted is there's so much to talk about in the how do you get your first CFO job, what skills you've got to show, what do you do once you've got it, how do you react in that first 100 days? And we're covering an awful lot of that coming up on the summit. And other highlights that I haven't mentioned. On day 1, we've got Patrick Dunn, who's written the book Boards and is a real expert in how the dynamic of the boardroom works. He's going to be talking about the CEO, CFO, and chairperson relationship, which is one of the key things we do and one of the reasons we do virtual boardrooms on the Future CFO program. We've got Catherine Marks, Alex Marsh, and Alice Clementi joining us to talk about leadership and impact. Very, very key area. We've also got on day 2, Ashley Vukovic and Paul McCowan, who are both part of the GrowCFO mentoring team, coming along talking about driving growth and shareholder value, plus all of the sessions that we've talked about as we've gone through the conversation. I think that's going to be a really exciting 2-day summit.
It's going to be jam-packed.
It certainly is. Andrew, thank you for coming back yet again and being the guest on this week's GrowCFO show.
No worries, Kevin. Hopefully see you again soon.